You wake up in February of 537. The light through the cracks in your shutters is the color of old bone. You know this light now. You have known it for almost a year. You had told yourself all through the autumn, all through the long cold of December, that by February the sun would have remembered itself, that the world would have remembered itself. It has not. You lie under whatever wool and skin you have left. Your body is thinner than it was a year ago. You can feel the ridge of your own hip against the floor. You can feel your ribs when you breathe. You are not yet starving. You are something else. You are diminished. You have been diminishing slowly for 18 months, and the diminishing has become the shape of your life. The house is quieter than it was. There are fewer of you now. You sit up. You listen. There is no sound from the buyer. There has been no sound from the buyer for months because there is nothing left in the buyer to make a sound. You listen for birds. The birds are wrong this year. They are fewer and they come later. You listen for your neighbors. The village is muffled, as if packed in wool. If you watched the year before this one, if you stood with me on that March morning in 536, when the sun first dimmed and the dry fog rolled in from the north and the world did not understand what was happening to it, you know how this began. You know the terror of those first months. You know the snow in August. You know the failed harvest. You thought, as everyone thought, that 536 was the disaster. This is the question we did not answer then. This is what came next. You wake up in February of 537 and the sun is still wrong and your family is smaller and your hope is breaking and you do not yet know. You cannot know that the disaster has a duration you have not begun to imagine. The disaster is going to last your entire life. The disaster is going to last your children's lives. The disaster will outlive every name you have ever spoken. You wake up in February of 537 and you walk to the window and you open the shutters and you look at a sky the color of nothing and you begin the year that should not be possible. You step outside. The first thing you notice, the thing you have noticed every morning for almost a year, and which still, every morning, makes something small inside you go quiet, is the sky. It is not the sky of your childhood. It is not the sky of your father's childhood, or of any father before him in any memory anyone has ever told. The sky of 537 is brassy. It is the color of dirty water poured over old tin. The sun, when you can see it at all, is a disk you can look at directly. It hangs in the sky like a coin too long in a pocket. It throws no proper shadow. The Byzantine historian Procopius, who lived through these years in the court of Justinian and saw the same sky you see now, would write of this time. And it came about during this year that a most dread portent took place, for the sun gave forth its light without brightness, like the moon, during this whole year, and it seemed exceedingly like the sun in eclipse, for the beams it shed were not clear, nor such as it is accustomed to shed. He was describing 536, but the dimming did not end in 536. The fog we described in the previous year did not lift. It thinned in places. It changed color, but it did not disappear. The atmospheric scientists of our own time, Paul Majewski at the Climate Change Institute of the University of Maine, working with cores drilled from the Colle Gnifeti Glacier in the Swiss Alps, have confirmed what the chroniclers told us. The sulfate aerosols thrown into the stratosphere by the great Icelandic eruption of 535 to 536 persisted for 2 to 3 years in the upper atmosphere. They did not blow away. They settled slowly, like ash in a still pond, and while they settled, they kept the heat of the sun from reaching the ground. In northern Europe, the summer of 537 will be 2.5 degrees Celsius colder than normal. The Bavarian tree rings, read centuries later by dendrochronologists, will show this. A year so cold the wood barely grew, a year so cold the trees themselves recorded their hunger in rings no thicker than thread. You do not know this. You have no word for Celsius. You have no word for stratosphere. What you have is the field. You walk to the field. The field is wrong. You planted what you had, the seed corn you saved, against your hunger, all through the bitter winter, and what came up is wrong. The stalks are short, the leaves are pale. The grain, when it forms, will be light in your hand. You will harvest, in the late summer of 537, perhaps a third of what your father harvested in a good year. You will eat it slowly. You will eat it mixed. You know now the taste of bread that is not bread. You know the bread of acorns, ground and pounded and leached of their bitterness in 3 changes of water. You know the bread of inner bark, the soft layer beneath the rough rind of the elm and the pine, dried and ground and mixed with whatever flour you have. You know the bread of dried peas. You know the bread of dried beans. You know the gritty crunch of bread that has too much chaff in it, because you cannot afford to throw the chaff away. The bread of 537 is sour, and it is dense, and it sits in your stomach like a stone, and it is also, you understand with a strange and terrible gratitude, the only thing that is keeping you alive. The wrong colour of the crops, the wrong taste of the bread, the wrong sound of the village. It is the sound that haunts you most. A village in a normal year is not a quiet place. There are sheep, there are cattle, there are geese, there are dogs barking at things that may or may not be there. There is the sound of the smith's hammer. There is the sound of women at the well. There are children who, even in hard years, find ways to laugh. The village of 537 has none of these. The sheep are gone. Most of the cattle are gone. What oxen remain are kept alive on whatever the family can spare, because without oxen there will be no ploughing in the spring of 538. The geese are eaten. The dogs are thinner. The smith works less, because there is less iron, because the trade routes have thinned. The women at the well speak more quietly. The children, and this is the worst of it, the children do not run. The children sit in doorways and watch with eyes too large for their faces. Cassiodorus, the Roman statesman serving the Gothic king Theodahad in Italy, wrote in his official letters in this period of crops, failing in regions where they had never failed before. He wrote of strange skies. He wrote with the careful diplomatic language of a man who must explain a catastrophe without seeming to despair, of a winter without storms, a spring without mildness, a summer without heat. He wrote that the fruits did not ripen. He wrote that the wine did not come. He was writing from Italy, from a position of power, and even from there, even from the offices of state, the world was visibly breaking. But what no one in 537 knows, what they cannot know, is that this is not the end of the catastrophe. This is the middle. For a long time, for nearly 15 centuries, historians believed what the chroniclers had told them, that something terrible had happened in the year 536, that the sun had dimmed for a year, perhaps 18 months, that harvests had failed, that people had starved, and then the assumption went, the world had recovered, the fog had lifted, life had returned to its slow, ordinary shape. This is not what happened. The truth was hidden in the ice, in the high glaciers of the Alps and in the deep ice of Greenland. Every year of the past several thousand years lies preserved in layers. Each year of snowfall, compressed by the years above it, captures the chemistry of the atmosphere of its time. Volcanic eruptions leave a signature, a sulfate spike, a fingerprint of the particular volcano that produced it. In the early years of this century, the team led by Michael McCormick, Goeller Professor of Medieval History at Harvard, chair of the Initiative for the Science of the Human Past, and the glaciologist Paul Majewski, drilled into the Colle Gnifeti Glacier and read what was there. What they found rewrote the history of this period. The 536 eruption was not a single event. It was the first of a sequence. There was an Icelandic eruption in 536. There was another massive eruption in 540, likely in Central America, possibly Ilopango in present-day El Salvador. There was another in 547. Each one threw new aerosols into the stratosphere. Each one extended the cooling. The atmosphere of the Northern Hemisphere between 536 and roughly 550 was simply not allowed to recover. Every time the haze began to thin, another eruption thickened it again. Their findings were published in the journal Antiquity in 2018. Lovelock, McCormick, and their colleagues working from the ice itself, demonstrating in chemistry what the chroniclers had known in their bones, and the climate scientist Michael Siegel, in a 2015 paper in the journal Nature, had already revised the chronology of volcanic eruptions of the past 2,500 years and confirmed 536 was the beginning of one of the most volcanically disturbed periods in 2 millennia. Michael McCormick has called it, and listen to this carefully because it is a sentence with weight in it, the beginning of one of the worst periods to be alive, if not the worst year. You, in 537, do not know any of this. What you know is the second winter. You had told yourself in the late summer of 536 that you would survive the winter, and then the world would right itself. You did survive the winter. The world has not righted itself. The snow came early in 536. The snow comes early again in 537. The frost reaches further south than it should. In the high pastures of the Bavarian Alps, the snow line has descended. Pastures that have grazed sheep for generations are simply not available this year. In Britain, in Gaul, in the Italian Po Valley, the growing season has shortened by weeks. A few weeks of warmth subtracted from the calendar is, for a farmer, the difference between life and the long, slow falling away. By the late winter of 537, the food stores that survived the first failed harvest are exhausted. This is the moment the first true famines hit their depth. Not the panic of 536, the panic of a strange year. The starvation of 537, the grim, organized, methodical starvation of a people who have eaten everything they can eat and now must eat what they should not. You eat the seed grain. You know you should not. You know that to eat the seed grain is to mortgage next year against this one, and you know that you have done it because there is no other choice. You eat the old leather. There is a method to it. The leather of an old harness, boiled long enough, becomes a kind of broth. It is not nutrition. It is the memory of nutrition. You eat the bark. You eat what your great-grandmother told you in a story you only half believed could be eaten in the worst years, and the peoples around you begin to move. Across the Carpathians, across the plains of what we now call Ukraine, a quiet movement that had been building for decades begins to accelerate. The Slavic peoples, small communities of farmers and herders, are beginning to leave the lands they have known. The archaeology shows new Slavic settlements appearing across the former Roman frontier in this exact period. Some of them are walking south. They will reach the Balkans. They will, within a generation, transform the Balkans from a Roman province into something else entirely. The historians of our time, looking at climate proxies, at pollen records, at the timing of settlement evidence, increasingly believe that this great migration was driven in significant part by the climate shock of 536 and the years that followed. You do not see this from your village. What you see is that strangers come through. They come through in greater numbers each month. They are thin. They are armed. They ask if there is grain. There is no grain. They move on. And in Italy, in the heart of what was once the Western Roman Empire and is now a contested ground between the armies of the Byzantine Emperor Justinian and the Ostrogothic king, the war has reached its crisis. In February of 537, the very month in which you have woken, Vitiges, the Gothic king, marches on Rome. He brings, by the count of the chroniclers, an army of more than 100,000 men, though the real number was likely smaller. Inside the walls of Rome, the Byzantine general Belisarius has perhaps 5,000 troops and a starving city. The siege of Rome begins in February of 537. It will last more than a year. Inside the walls, the Romans will eat what you are eating. They will eat worse than what you are eating. They will eat, before it ends, things that ought not to be spoken of. And then, just when the survivors believed it was ending, the second blow came. The world does not end in a moment. This is the thing they do not tell you in the stories of the end of the world. The stories make it loud. The stories make it sudden. The stories give it a shape, a fire, a flood, a fall of stars, and a duration that a human heart can hold. The end of the world, as it actually happens, has none of these. The end of the world, as you are living it, is small. It is a thing of subtractions. Your father dies in March of 537. He was an old man by the measure of his time. He was perhaps 55, perhaps 60. He had lived through hard winters before. He had lived through bad harvests. He had lived through the death of 2 of his children in the years before you were old enough to remember. He was a man whose body was made of his work. His hands, when you took them in yours that final morning, were the hands you remembered from your childhood, the same brown, rough hands, but lighter now, lighter than they should have been, as if something inside them had already begun to leave. He did not die of the plague. The plague is not here yet. He did not die in battle. The war has not come to your village. He died of subtraction. He died because the world had been taking small things from him for 2 years until there was not enough of him left. A pound of his weight in the autumn of 536. A pound of his strength after the winter. The warmth of his hands slowly through the spring. The clearness of his eyes, the sound of his voice in the evenings, which had grown quieter and quieter until you noticed only by its absence. He died of cold and hunger and the long, slow gathering of a body that had been asked to do too much with too little for too long. You bury him in the spring. The ground is harder than it should be for March. It takes longer to dig the grave than it should. You and your brother and one neighbor, who is also thinner than he should be, take turns with the spade. The neighbor is breathing hard before you are halfway down. You stop more than you should. The work that should have taken a morning takes the whole of a day. You stand at the grave in the late afternoon. The light is the wrong color. The sky is brassy. You think of all the words your father knew, the names of the fields, the names of the seasons, the names of the saints whose days marked the year, the songs he sang in the evenings when you were small. You think of how all of those words are now only in your mouth. You think of how, when you die, they will be in no one's mouth at all. You walk home. The walk is shorter than it should be because you do not have the strength to walk slowly. You sit by the fire, which is small because the wood is rationed, because too many of the trees within easy walking distance have been cut, and the ones that remain are further away than your legs will easily take you. You drink water from a cup that was your grandmother's. The water tastes of the iron of the stream and the strange dust that has been settling on everything for 2 years. Your mother dies in April. You do not have the strength to feel it the way you felt your father. This is the thing that grief does when it goes on too long. It does not become more, it becomes less. You bury her beside him. The neighbor who helped you in March does not help you in April. He and his family left in the night 2 weeks ago. No one knows where they went. East, you think. People say east. People have been saying east for months, as if east is a place. As if any direction is a place. You slaughter the last sheep in April. You should have done it sooner. You kept it through the winter on what little hay you had, telling yourself it would be the breeding ewe of next year. But it is too thin to breed. It would die anyway by midsummer of its own emptiness. You kill it cleanly. You and your brother and your wife. You have a wife, you have not spoken of her, because there has not been room in this telling for the small, private griefs of a marriage in a year like this. You and your wife render every part of the sheep. The meat is dried in strips. The fat is rendered into tallow that will burn through the next winter. The bones are boiled for 3 days into a broth so thin it is the memory of a meal. The hide is scraped and tanned, because you may need it. The sheep was named. You do not say her name now. You will not say her name for the rest of your life. The mill stops running in May. The miller and his family pack what they can carry. They tell you they are going east, to the bishop's lands, where they have heard there is still grain. You ask them if it is true. They look at you for a long moment and they say, "We have heard." They do not say it is true. They embrace you. The miller's wife, who used to laugh more than anyone in the village, does not laugh. They walk out through the village gate in the early morning. You watch them until the brassy haze of the road takes them. They do not look back. By June, there are 17 of you left in a village that had 38 in the spring of 536. The Syriac chronicler, John of Ephesus, writing of the famines that swept through Asia Minor in these same years, would describe, and his words have come down to us across 15 centuries, how the dead were so many that they could not be buried, how families walked the roads carrying their starving children, how the cities filled with the dying who had come from the villages because the villages had nothing left. He was writing of regions far from where you stand. He was writing of regions much like where you stand. You do not feel terror anymore. The terror was last year. The terror is a luxury of the early disasters, when there is still the energy of fear inside you. What you feel now is something quieter. It is the understanding that this is not a year. This is what your life is now. This dimmed sun, this brassy sky, this hunger that lives in your stomach the way a tenant lives in a house. This is your world. You sit by the fire in the long evenings and you do not speak much. And your wife does not speak much. And your brother does not speak much. And the silence is not a silence of anger or of grief. It is the silence of people who have understood something they cannot yet name. You are living through the end of a world. You will not live to see what comes after. You hear them before you see them. Late in the summer of 537, in the long, warm evenings, and they are not warm, not really, they are merely less cold than the rest of the year, you begin to hear, on certain nights when the wind is from the south, the sound of distant movement. It is hard to describe. It is not the sound of an army. It is something larger and quieter than an army. It is the sound of a people moving, the shuffle of feet on a road, hundreds of feet, thousands of feet, the lowing of what cattle remain, the cry of an infant, the call of a man to his brother across the line of march. By the summer of 538, the world is on the move. Whole peoples are walking across continents. The Slavs, small, scattered communities of farmers from the lands beyond the Carpathians, have begun the migration that will, within a century, transform the Balkans. Archaeological excavations across what is now Romania, Bulgaria, Serbia, and Greece have shown new Slavic settlements appearing in this exact period. the late 530s, the 540s. Their pottery, their burial styles, their dwellings replacing the older Roman and Thracian patterns. They are not invaders in the sense the chroniclers will later make them. They are families. They are walking because where they were is no longer livable, and where they are going is a rumour. To the north and west, the Lombards, a Germanic people then settled in what is now Hungary, are stirring. They will not invade Italy until 568. But the pressures that will push them out of their lands and into the Italian peninsula are gathering now. A people who cannot feed themselves where they are will eventually go somewhere else. Out of the deep steppes of Central Asia, the Avars, a confederation of horse peoples, are moving westward. Within a generation they will press on the borders of Byzantium and on the territories of the Slavs themselves, driving them further into Roman lands. The great chain of migration that the historians of a later age would call the end of the migration period is not ending in 537. It is reawakening. In China, in this very same window of years, the Northern Wei dynasty is collapsing into civil war. Chinese chronicles record for this period anomalous weather, yellow dust, summer frosts, failed harvests. Paleoclimatologists working with Chinese tree rings and lake sediments have suggested that the climate shock of 536 reached the Far East as well, that the great volcanic plume of the Northern Hemisphere did not respect the boundaries of any civilization, that a peasant in Henan and a peasant in Bavaria were looking at versions of the same dimmed sun. The Northern Way breaks apart in 534, but its successors, the Eastern Way and the Western Way, will fight through this entire decade for the future of northern China, fighting on bellies that are not full, fighting for harvests that did not come. This is the world you are living in. You do not know any of this. What you know is that the roads are full. In Italy, the Gothic War has become a horror. The siege of Rome, which began in February of 537, will not lift until March of 538. For more than a year, Belisarius and his small Byzantine garrison hold the Aurelian walls against the Gothic king, Vitiges, and an army many times their size. Inside the walls, Procopius, who is there, who is on the staff of Belisarius, who is writing what he sees, describes a city eating itself. The Romans eat their bread ration when there is a ration. They eat the meat of horses that have died. They drink water that is no longer clean, because Vitiges has cut the aqueducts that have brought water to Rome for 500 years. The aqueducts that fed the great public baths, the fountains, the gardens, the aqueducts that were, in a sense, the engineering symbol of Roman civilization, are dry. The city of 1 million in the time of Augustus is now a city of perhaps 50,000, and those 50,000 are starving with the soldiers who defend them. This is the literal fall of Rome, not in 410, not in 476, but here, in 537, in a year of dimmed sun and failed harvests, when the city's last great defender holds its walls against a king who is himself feeding his army on a countryside that cannot feed anyone. Procopius writes in his Gothic war of bodies in the streets, of starvation so complete that mothers, and here the chronicler's pen falters, because some things even Procopius cannot say plainly, that mothers did things in those long winter months of 537 that no telling can survive. And beyond Rome, the Persian wars are resuming. Justinian, the emperor in Constantinople, who in better years has been planning the recovery of the entire Western Empire, finds himself fighting on too many fronts in a world where every front is hungrier than it was the year before. The chronicler, Marcellinus comes writing in Constantinople, records the strange weather, the failed harvests, the wars on every frontier, the way the certainties of an empire that has stood for 1,000 years are beginning almost imperceptibly to fray. You experience none of this directly. You experience it as the strangers on the road and the silence of trade and the absence of the salt that used to come from the south and the absence of the iron that used to come from the east. You experience it as a wife saying, at the end of a long evening, there has been no traveller in 2 weeks. You experience it as the slow realization that the world is not a fixed thing in which you live. The world is moving. The world is walking past your door, and there is no safe place toward which it is walking, and no safe place that is staying behind. The whole world is becoming refugees. You who have stayed are simply a refugee who has not yet moved. There is something else. You do not know about it. You cannot know about it. It is too small to see. It is too quiet to hear. It is not yet in your village, and it will not be in your village this year, or next year, or the year after that. But it is moving. It has been moving for a long time, and the conditions of your world, the conditions you have been living for almost 2 years now, are exactly the conditions it needs. The bacterium has a name. The name will not be given to it for 1,300 years, when a French-Swiss bacteriologist named Alexandre Yersin will identify it in a Hong Kong laboratory in 1894. The name is Yersinia pestis. The name we know it by in our common language is plague. Recent DNA evidence from skeletons recovered from burial sites across Eurasia has revealed something remarkable. The strain of Yersinia pestis that will, in the year 541, explode out of Egypt and into Constantinople, and from there across the entire Mediterranean world, was already moving in the years before its arrival. It was circulating in rodent populations in Central Asia. It was traveling along trade routes. It was, in some sense, already on its way. The DNA samples have been recovered from graves in modern-day Kyrgyzstan, in the Tian Shan Mountains, dated to the years before the Great Outbreak. The disease was already there. What the disease needed was a world that was ready for it. The disease needed a population that was weakened. The disease needed disrupted ecosystems that would push rodent populations into closer contact with humans. The disease needed disrupted trade networks that would carry it further than it should naturally go. The disease needed cities full of people who could not flee, and villages full of people who could not stay. The disease needed 537. Modern epidemiology has been clear for a century on this point. Malnourished populations are far more vulnerable to epidemic disease than well-fed ones. A body that has been hungry for 2 years has an immune system that is hungry too. A body whose mother went hungry while pregnant, and there are many such bodies now, has, perhaps, a permanently reduced capacity to fight off infection. Across Europe and the Near East, in this year of 537, an entire generation is being born underweight to mothers who have not eaten enough for a year. These children will be the young adults of 541, of 542, of 543. These children will be the ones the plague finds first, and the rats are moving. When the wild food supplies of a region collapse, when the seeds and the wild grasses and the small mammals and the birds that feed on them all dwindle, the rodents who live on the edge of human settlement are forced inward. They come to the grain stores. They come to the houses. They come where you are. They bring with them the fleas. The fleas bring with them what the fleas carry. You do not see this. You see, perhaps, more rats in the storehouse than there used to be. You curse them. You set traps. You do not understand that they are part of something larger. Nothing in your knowledge prepares you to understand what is happening at the scale of the bacterium and the flea and the rat and the global movement of all three. You survived the disappearance of the sun. You will survive 537. You may even survive 538. You may live, if you are lucky, to see the late 540s, by which time the haze of the eruptions will have finally cleared and the summers will have begun, in fits and starts, to return to something like their old warmth. You will allow yourself in those years to believe that the catastrophe is over. You will be wrong. The world that emerged from 536 is not the same world that entered it. Something is moving toward you. The bacterium, invisible, patient, is moving west. It is following the trade routes you no longer use because you no longer have anything to trade. It is following the refugee roads. It is in the grain ships that still, despite everything, move between Alexandria and Constantinople. In 4 years, in the spring of 541, it will arrive in the Egyptian port of Pelusium. From Pelusium, it will travel up the coast to Alexandria. From Alexandria, it will travel by ship to every port of the Mediterranean. In 542, it will reach Constantinople, the greatest city of your world, and it will kill, at the peak, 5,000 people a day. Some estimates say 10,000 a day. The bodies will be loaded onto ships and dumped in the sea because there is no longer any room to bury them on the land. You do not know this. You are sitting by a small fire in a thinning village in the brassy half-light of a sun that has not been right for almost 2 years. And 4 years from where you stand, the catastrophe that began with the sun will be answered by the catastrophe of the plague. You are living, though you cannot know it, in the small, still moment between 2 disasters. In our own time, the scientists have given this period a name. In 2016, in the journal Nature Geoscience, the dendrochronologist Ulf Bündgen and his colleagues published a paper that has reshaped the way we understand these centuries. The paper was titled, plainly, Cooling and Societal Change During the Late Antique Little Ice Age from 536 to around 660 AD. They had read the rings of trees from the Russian Altai, from the European Alps, from across the Northern Hemisphere, and they had found a signal that was unmistakable. Beginning in 536, summer temperatures in the Northern Hemisphere dropped. They did not recover for 124 years. 124 years. You, sitting by your small fire in 537, do not know the length of what you are living through. If you are 20 years old in this year, if you stand at the threshold of your adult life in this dimmed and starving world, you will live perhaps another 40 years if you are very lucky, and you will die long before the cold lifts. Your children, born now in 537, will live their entire lives under shortened summers and longer winters. Their children will be born into the cold and grow old in the cold and die in the cold, and none of them will ever know what the world was like before. If you are 5 years old in 537, if you are one of the wide-eyed, silent children sitting in the doorways, your aunt remembers. The cold will be the only world you ever know. You will not know that summers were once warmer. You will not know that harvests were once larger. You will not know that the sun was once a different color. You will live your entire life inside the catastrophe, and you will not even know that it is a catastrophe, because you will have no other thing to compare it to. The civilizational consequences will be enormous, though they will take generations to reveal themselves. The Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, will survive these years, but it will be a wounded empire. Its great ambition to recover the Western Empire, the dream Justinian dreams in his court, even as you starve in your village, will founder in the long demographic collapse of these decades. It will lose by 600 much of what it briefly held. It will continue to exist for another 900 years, but it will never again be what it was on the eve of 536. The Italian peninsula will be devastated. The Gothic War, intensified by climate and famine, will continue until 554 and will leave Italy depopulated, its great cities reduced. Rome itself, the city of 1 million, will fall to perhaps 30,000 people by the 7th century. The fields outside its walls will go back to forest. In northern Europe, archaeologists have found something striking. Across what is now Scandinavia, across parts of Britain, hundreds of settlements were simply abandoned in the middle decades of the 6th century. Villages emptied, fields returned to bracken. The Norse later remembered this in their myths as the Fimbul Winter, the great winter that preceded the end of the world. They were not, perhaps, entirely wrong. And there is one more piece of evidence, perhaps the most haunting of all. The same ice cores that recorded the volcanic eruptions of 536 also recorded something else: lead. Throughout the Roman period, the ice of the Alps records a steady deposition of lead pollution, the byproduct of Roman silver smelting, the chemical fingerprint of an industrial economy operating at scale across the Mediterranean. Beginning in 536, in the Lovelock and McCormick research, the lead disappears from the ice. The economy that produced it had stopped. Lead would not return to those ice cores in significant quantities for another 600 years. You are not just living through bad weather. You are living through the measurable chemical end of a civilization. The Roman world, which had endured for more than 1,000 years, is dying around you. You cannot see it dying. You see only your own fields, your own family, your own small fire. But the ice in distant glaciers is recording the silence of every Roman smelter, every Roman mint, every Roman ship that is no longer sailing, and the silence will last 6 centuries. You did not know it, but you were living the first decade of a 124-year winter. I want to leave you before we end with 3 thoughts. The first is this: the climate shock of 537 was a cooling of about 2.5 degrees Celsius in northern Europe. 2.5 degrees. That cooling reshaped continents, it collapsed economies, it moved peoples, it killed, by every credible modern estimate, millions across the northern hemisphere. The climate scientists of our own century are warning of warming, not cooling, of similar magnitude in the coming decades. 2.5 degrees in one direction or another is not a small number. The people of 537 learned that in the only way it can be learned. The second is this: the eruption that began the catastrophe of 536 was not unique. Volcanologists call an eruption of that magnitude a VEI7, a volcanic explosivity index of 7. The last VEI7 eruption in human history was Tambora in 1815, which caused the famous Year Without a Summer in 1816, the year that gave us Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and the first great agricultural crises of the modern era. Before that, the eruption of 536. The geological record suggests that VEI7 eruptions occur on average every 500 to 700 years. We are statistically due. There is no warning system that will give us more than days. There is no preparation that will spare us the consequences. The third is this, and it is the hardest. The people of 537 had no way to know how long the catastrophe would last. They believed, in 536, that it would last a year. They believed in 537 that it would last 2 years. They were already wrong. It would last 124 years. The civilizations they had been born into were already, in 537, dying. They could not see the death. They could only see the present, the dimmed sky, the failed harvest, the empty doorways of their neighbors, the small fire in the long evening. We may face the same uncertainty with our own crises. We may already be living the first years of something we will not understand until our grandchildren write its name. The people of 537 endured. Most of them died, but enough of them endured that you and I are here. Enough of them buried their fathers and slaughtered their last sheep and ate the bread of bark and walked past the empty mill and somehow raised children, who raised children, who raised children, until in the long fullness of time, those children became us. They are the reason we exist. They did not know it, they could not know it, they simply did the small daily work of staying alive in a world that was no longer designed for them. That is the meditation I want to leave you with, not the horror of the catastrophe, the dignity of the endurance. You will survive 537. Your body is thinner, your hope is brittle. The sun, by the autumn of 538, will begin falteringly to return. You will allow yourself, in the late summer of 538, in the early years of 539, to believe that the worst is behind you. You will be wrong. In 541, 4 years from where you now stand, a ship will arrive in the Egyptian port of Pelusium. It will bring something the world has never seen before. The catastrophe that began with the sun will end with the plague. If you want to see what comes next, if you want to know what happened when the bacterium that has been moving toward you across the steppes and the trade routes finally arrived in the Mediterranean, the video is already up. It is called When the Plague of Justinian Killed 50 Million. The trilogy is now complete. The year the sun disappeared, the year after, and the plague that ended the world, the sun had begun. Watch them in order, live them in order, subscribe if you have not already, so that the next reconstruction finds you when it is ready. I am Walter. Thank you for being here. The series continues.